Hello and welcome to the Founder Friendly podcast. My name is Chris from LeadGen, and my guest today is Mornay Smith, founder of the sales business accelerator Immerse Consulting. Mornay is an expert in sales and business development, and that's mainly what we're going to be talking about today. His company, Immerse Consulting, works with businesses in developing and optimizing sales processes, as well as coaching executives. On his website, he asks a simple question. Why do the best athletes and business leaders in the world need ongoing coaching? And the answer to that, 10,000 hours of repetition might make you an expert, but you can only achieve mastery with a coach in significantly less time by improving the quality of focus and actions. Mornay started his career in Cape Town in different account management and strategy leadership roles. And then he moved to London in 2001, working in management position at a telecommunications company and also a workspace design company. He started his own consultancy in 2017, and in 2018 he also became the member share of EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. Welcome to the interview, Mornay.
Thank you very much, Christopher, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
Great, no problem. Really looking forward to speak. Also, particularly about sales, a topic that is so important and is something that I think not many people are specialized in. So I'm sure we have an interesting chat. The first question I wanted to ask you is, what made you go into sales and choose this as your profession?
So that's a good question, actually, and it maybe doesn't have as simple as an answer as it should. I think maybe some of my clients would be shocked to know that I was not a natural salesperson when I was growing up, nor was I a natural entrepreneur. My early forays into selling things in high school were not very successful. I tried to sell chocolate sweets when I was about 14 years old. I wasn't very good at it at all. And actually eventually went to university and studied marketing and economics. I then started my career, the first probably year and a half of my career in advertising, digital advertising. This was around 2000, around the dot-com boom. And in Cape Town, where I was living at the time, the internet was still pretty new, but it was very exciting. So I was quite happy to be in that industry. And it was quite glamorous, as you can imagine, the advertising industry might be. But then after about a year and a half, I had a desire to move abroad and to travel. My family never had the opportunity to travel abroad when I was a child. So I had some friends who were living in London at the time, and they encouraged me to come over. So I did. And it's an interesting story, actually, which I'll try and give you the shorter version of it because it's quite a long story. But the shorter version of it is that I'd obviously planned this move many months in advance. But then as it happened, my ticket to fly was the day after 9/11 happened. So I arrive in London and the world is in turmoil. There's people with very big machine guns at the airport, and nobody really knows what's going to happen over the next weeks. So I had a job interview lined up with an advertising agency in London who were also going to sponsor me for a work visa. So I only had a kind of a working holiday visa. And unfortunately, the company that I was supposed to interview with had an office in the World Trade Center. So they had a global freeze on all hiring, which meant I was now in a new country, having sold all my things and moved 6,000 miles across the world with no job and no work visa. So the only company that would hire me at the time was a small IT company here in London. And they basically just said, well, you're going to sell Dell computers and Microsoft software, which I knew nothing about. And it was old school sales. I had this is before the iPhone, before you had everything digitized. So I had the yellow pages, the actual book, and I had to make phone calls myself, and I had to book appointments, and then take a map of London and drive with my company car and go and see people. And so I kind of fell into sales. I have to be honest, I didn't enjoy it to start. It was very, very difficult, especially the cold calling part. But it was an incredibly good learning experience. And eventually, because I had to make money and I had to pay my rent, I persisted and I became good at it. And that started my love affair with sales. And from there, as you mentioned in your introduction, I became a partner in the IT company. We sold that business in 2005. I took the money that I made from my shares and I bought a small telecoms company. I ran that company for a couple of years. I built it up, managed to sell that off in 2008. And then I got into commercial property, where I spent the next about 10 years of my life helping two businesses to grow very, very fast as a salesman and then as a sales director running a sales team. And then in 2017, I finally decided that it was time for me to take my future into my own hands and start my own business again. And that's where Immerse was born.
Very interesting story. I think also what I can resonate with, or what I hear, let's say, also from other salespeople, is this thinking that they don't really enjoy sales, but they then got to enjoy it by doing it over and over again and becoming so good at it. So it's an interesting thing, or an interesting view on things, how you can, let's say, also find a passion. So yeah, and I find that quite interesting. Next thing I wanted to ask you is, what are the most common weaknesses that you see in companies in terms of their sales process when you do your consulting work?
It's a very good question. I mean, you would have seen from my website and certainly from some of my sales collateral that we use the analogy of comparing both companies and sales teams to sports teams. On my website, we talk about, most sports teams are run better than most sales teams. And there's a good reason for that, because when you compare the two, you can actually very quickly see why certain sales teams, or certain companies for that matter, are underperforming. The first obvious thing is that sports teams understand the value of acquiring or developing talent. So the first thing that they will do is they will go out and they'll try and buy the best players that they can get. And that, it's something that's very important to them. But they will research diligently the background and the statistics behind these players, and they know exactly what it is that they're getting. If they can't buy the players, they'll develop them themselves. So a lot of football teams will have academies where they have a youth academy, and they'll develop people through to play for the first team. So the first common mistake that I see a lot of companies make with sales teams is that they will rush the recruitment process. So there's an old saying, which is that, the right talent will very rarely arrive or show up exactly when you need it. But most companies wait and wait and wait because they don't want to spend the money to recruit the salesperson. And then they try and hire somebody when it's almost already too late. The sales figures are already suffering, or somebody in the team is already underperforming. And now they want to replace them very, very quickly. And they end up hiring the person that's available, not the person they need. So we've developed, a set of tools and services around that to help our clients actually assess and find the best salespeople for their team. The second thing is that when it comes to actually setting up the sales team, a very common mistake is that companies will have the owner being the sales manager, but they're also still selling. Yeah. So you own the company, you run the company, you're selling, and also you're managing the one or two other salespeople, or however many salespeople you have. Sales management is a full-time job, and we can talk about that more. And if you're trying to do many different things, then something is suffering in the process. Or if it's not the business owner that's managing the team or selling, then they typically take the salesperson who generated the highest profit or the biggest sales, and they make them the sales manager, which is counterintuitive if you think about it. I'm not a huge football fan. Coming from South Africa, I'm more of a rugby guy. But to use the football analogy, that's like taking your striker, your best player, and making him the manager or the coach of the team, and assuming that because Messi scores a lot of goals, he's also going to be a very good manager and good coach. Alex Ferguson, who obviously when he was head of Man United was, I think, widely recognized as one of the best coaches in the world. I think even he would agree that he wasn't the best player in playing days, but he was a fantastic coach. So making your best salesperson your sales manager is another mistake that we see a lot of people make, because the skills that it takes to be a great sales manager are not always the same as being a good salesperson. And then going on from that, we often see that salespeople will often know what to do, but they don't do what they know. So when you have a team of, say, 5 or 10 people, you have some of the people in the team that are performing well and some that are not performing so well. And the ones that are not performing so well oftentimes know what they should be doing better, but they don't do it because nobody's holding them to account. And they don't have a culture of collaboration where we're sharing lessons learned about, right, so guys, this month we've won these 5 deals. Let's talk about why did we win? Or we've lost these 3 deals. Let's talk about why did we lose? Let's do an analysis. Again, if you look at a sports team, they will have video footage of every single game, and they will analyze the video footage and say, oh, hold on, pause there. Look what's happening here. The ball moved here, but you went over here. Why did you do that? Let's improve on that. So one of the things that we do is we help companies build sales playbooks, which means that we figure out what are the best ways to do everything. Because if you have 10 salespeople, there isn't 10 best ways to do something. There's probably 1 or 2. So let's figure out what that is, and let's train and coach everybody to do that. So then maybe the final example, and I could talk about this all day, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this topic. Maybe the final example that I will mention is sports teams train. And that seems like a really obvious thing, but they train a lot. If you're a professional sports team, you're training multiple times a week. So that when it comes to Saturday or Sunday, when you're playing, you're not training during the match. You're playing to win. And yet, one of the biggest mistakes we see companies make is that their sales team don't practice. They don't do role play or role play practice. So even if they decide, what is the best way to handle this objection, or what is the best questions to ask in order for me to figure out what my client really needs, they don't practice that with each other. Oh, we're too busy. No, that's strange. We don't do that. That's weird. We don't want to do that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. So that's the equivalent of sending 11 or 15 players out onto the field on Saturday with no training and saying, so I want you guys to go and try some things and let's see how it goes. So effectively, salespeople are practicing on customers, and then they're surprised that the results aren't there. So there's a number of things, a number of patterns that we see repeating over and over again. And it really isn't rocket science, but sometimes they just need, a coach, a sales coach, or a sales company like mine to come in and kind of hold a mirror up and say, okay, here are the things that we need to work on.
Great insight. I think also the training aspect is so important, like the role play you mentioned, in terms of that people just think they're better than this or they don't need this. Whereas those people who say this are probably, I don't know, they probably need it the most.
Well, there's a wonderful saying, and I apologize for whoever actually came up with this because I don't recall who said it. But the saying goes, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. So we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training.
Right.
And I think in many respects that's true. So when I talk on my website about the 10,000 hours of practice, that's obviously a very common saying about, you can be an expert at anything if you do 10,000 hours. Well, Tony Robbins famously says, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Because if I practice incorrectly over and over and over again, then I'm just going to groove a bad habit. What you need is considered practice. And that's why, Rory McIlroy, when he was number 1 in the world, he still has a coach, Tiger Woods. These guys still have coaches because when you get to the top, it's then about focused training, focused practice to maintain that edge and not just assume that, I had one good month or one good quarter or one good year, therefore I no longer need training.
Yeah.
If football players or rugby players took that approach, they'll very quickly go from number 1 in the league to number 10 in the league.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Good. I found a few interesting quotes on your LinkedIn. A couple of them I wanted to talk to you about. The first one was, I think it was a post you did. It says, company culture is like a baby. You have to watch it 24/7. You need to feed it 7 times a day. And if it makes a mess, you better clean it up immediately. So what I wanted to ask is, what makes a great company culture and how can you as a coach facilitate that process of developing it?
That's a very, very good question. I mean, company culture is something that was really instilled in me in the last role that I had when I was in sales and then sales director of a design and build company here in London. The owner of that business was very big on company culture. And actually, I was very fortunate to experience firsthand what a big difference that makes to the way that a company operates. Most companies that we speak to assume that they know what their company culture is. And they'll say that, it's a feeling or a sentiment. And then very interestingly, when we start interviewing different people at different levels of the organization, there often isn't consensus as to what it might be. And I think that, company culture, in a way, you don't decide what your company culture is, you discover it. Because if you have a business that's ongoing, it'll probably already exist, good or bad. And you then have a choice as to what you want to do with that. But the company culture, I would describe as the core values of the business or what the company believes. Mm-hmm. Now, Simon Sinek, obviously very famously in 2009, did the TED Talk, Start With Why, and then subsequently wrote the book Start With Why, and the follow-up book, Finding Your Why. And he talks about, uses Apple as an example and talks about how Apple has a very specific belief as to why they exist as a business. Not about why they sell computers or why they sell iPhones or any other product, but why they exist as a business. So the way that I approach this with clients when we help them discover their core values is, the first question we ask them is why? Why do you exist as a business? Why this business? Why this product? Why this service? Why have you set it up? Why do you hire the people that you have? And it's a journey that we help them go on to really understand what is in the DNA of that business. What is it that makes them get out of bed in the morning and actually gets them excited, gets them fired up? And then we take them through a process where they develop their core values, what they really, really believe, what is fundamental to their company. With Immerse, with my business, our first core value is make an impact. So I started this company because, having been exposed to consultants and coaches and trainers and mentors through my life, I found that sometimes they would come in and they would sell you 2 hours of their time and they would give you some good advice, but then they would disappear. And there wasn't an investment on their part, an emotional investment to actually help you achieve your goals. So Immerse is about make an impact. And everybody in my team understands that that's goal number one. Number two, we talk about seduce with stories. We love the idea that, there's a Native American proverb that says, those who tell the stories rule the world. Right. Winston Churchill very famously said that he's not worried about history because he intends to write it himself. Okay. And that's true because, because history is written from the point of the person who writes it, right? The third one we talk about is outcomes, not activities. We don't believe in giving our clients a list of things that we've done. We believe in actually helping them to achieve their outcomes. And finally, we believe in embracing tough days. And what we mean by that is everybody's going to have a tough day. Bad things are going to happen, but you can decide how you respond to it. So by using that as an example, we've discovered what the DNA of Immerse is, and we help our clients go on that journey. And the way that I describe the core values to them, when your children are small, you can give them, rules for life. Oh, you should, eat your vegetables. You should clean your room. You should do your homework. Don't smoke, don't drink. But when they become older, you can't stand over their shoulder 24 hours a day and go, hold on, what are you doing? Is that the right thing or the wrong thing to do? You have to trust that the values that you've instilled in them is going to help them make good decisions. Yeah. So companies that have strong core values and a strong culture are able to grow really fast because the team make decisions that are consistent with what's important to the business. They don't veer off in directions that harm the company because they have these guidelines, these values that help them to decide what's good and what's bad. And obviously in what we do in focusing on sales and helping companies to grow really fast, it's super important that they have a strong culture and strong core values, because if you double a company in size, if you double the revenue, if you double the number of people in your business, and you don't have these guidelines so that people know how to make good decisions, you're going to have real chaos very, very quickly within that organization. So for us, a strong culture and strong core values is all about figuring out what do you believe, what's important to you, what's in the DNA, and what is that thing that pulls everybody together around a common goal?
Good. Then the next quote that I found, to give you one more of them, is on your LinkedIn. It says, "I am passionate about success," as the first line of your profile. So
Right.
which I like the line, and I think it's a non-British thing to say, maybe, because British people, I think,
Yes.
tend to be a little more humble, right? But I like that, and I think maybe that's we have that in common because we're both immigrants into this country.
No.
But what I wanted to ask you is, what helped you, or was there any moment or realization that helped you to find that passion or the purpose that you have?
It's interesting. A specific moment in my childhood actually pops up very quickly, interestingly enough. I was an athlete when I was young. I was into sport and everything else, but I was a bit of a strange child. I would say that I didn't really fit in anywhere exactly. So I went through that classic, teenage thing where I was about 15 years old and I was feeling very kind of lonely. Probably it was in my head, but at the time as a teenager, it feels very real. And I was very, very upset. And my father, bless him, was looking at me and thinking, what do I do? And back then we still had VHS tapes. That'll tell you a little something about how old I am. And my father brought home a VHS tape of a talk that was done by a gentleman called Leonardo Valenci Buscaglia. And he did a talk for the Ford Motor Company. I think it was filmed in the 1980s. This was probably about the early 90s I'm talking about now. And he had done a talk at the Ford Motor Company called "Only You Can Make the Difference." And he talked in that seminar, he talked about nobody can make you happy or put you on a downer unless you choose to go there. And as a 15-year-old living in South Africa, that one thought made a profound impact on me, because it was the first time that I had a realization that we as human beings have some kind of control over our emotional state. We can actually decide whether we want to be happy or sad, motivated or unmotivated, driven or not driven. We have the ability to make that decision. And I'd always just thought that, well, some people have a good life because good things happen to them, and some people have a not so good life because bad things happen to them. And it was the first time that I really, I think, intellectually understood that you could make a choice. And that's what kickstarted my fascination with human psychology. And probably later why I ended up enjoying sales so much, because sales is a lot about human psychology, right? Mm-hmm. The psychology of why people make decisions, why they buy certain things and not other things, why they are attracted to certain salespeople and not other salespeople. So that led me to start reading and listening to, at the time it was books and CDs by Tony Robbins, later on Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, and then over the years, many other, international speakers and coaches, but really got me interested in the idea of receiving coaching and mentoring. And when I was in my early 20s living in London, I signed up to a life coach and started exploring, my own kind of psychology and my own beliefs. And that's really been probably one of the best investments that I've ever made in myself. And the reason why I put that quote, I'm passionate about success, is actually, and it's a very good deduction by you that it's not a British thing, because actually it's a derivative of an American quote, which is success leaves clues, right?
Yeah.
Which means when people are successful in life, and obviously we define success differently, all of us, right? Success doesn't necessarily mean a big house and fancy car and things. Success could mean inner peace. It could mean a healthy family. It could mean spiritual awakening. It could mean anything that is relevant to you. But success leaves clues for me means we have the ability and the opportunity to model people that have been successful in life. And I'm passionate about success because I believe it's a choice. Yes. I believe it's something that we can choose and we can go after, and that gets me excited.
Yeah, very good. And I think I have one example adding to that, what you said with the emotional state. It's really true that you can choose how you feel in a moment. I don't know wherever it was, but I was reading it in a book, and I think it was some kind of life coach or someone in that field as well. And he said, if you ask someone to be happy for 3 minutes, and you give him $1 million to do that, or he was asking that question, would you be able to be happy then for these 3 minutes?
Sure.
And of
Yeah.
course you would be, right?
Yeah.
So then that makes it in a way true that it is possible that you decide how
Absolutely.
you want to feel. Yeah,
it's very, very true. I mean, one of the things that I often say to people that we're coaching is, you can't think your way into acting differently. You have to act your way into thinking differently. So as an example of that, you know, it's very similar to the example you've just given. If I said to you, okay, let's you and I do an exercise right now. Let's smile, big smile for 30 seconds. And if we sat like this for the next 30 seconds, even if it's just because we're looking at each other and you look a bit silly and I look a bit silly, it will actually change the way that you feel. It's very difficult to feel depressed and sorry for yourself when you have like a big grin on your face, right? It actually physically, by changing your physiology, the way that you use your body, you can change your emotions. And that's why, that the whole thing about, success and choosing is such a big thing for me, because I think it's something that, we should encourage people to do more.
Yeah. So, and then I also saw that you did a program with Tony Robbins, right? The Life Mastery Program.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that, what that was about and what you got from it?
Sure. Well, I don't know how much time we have. It was actually 3 courses that I did, but in a nutshell, during the beginning part of 2012, I was going through quite a difficult period in my life, both professionally and personally. I needed, to find something to kind of reset my limiting beliefs that I had, and to kind of reevaluate the choices that I'd made in my life. And I remember that I'd been away for a while traveling, and I'd come back and I was sitting on the underground, on the tube here in London, and I opened the Metro newspaper, the free newspaper that they give out here, and there was a little advert. Tony Robbins, he's going to do a 3.5-day program in a few weeks' time in London called Unlimited Power Within, UPW. And because I had read some of his books and listened to some of his CDs over the years, it'd always been on my bucket list to go to one of his events. And I thought, you know what, this is a sign. I have to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have the money, but I thought I'm gonna find the money. I'm gonna do it. So I went, and it was a 3.5-day seminar, which I can highly recommend to anybody. I think you have to be ready for it. It's quite full on for the 3.5 days. I mean, day one, you arrive in the afternoon at maybe 1:12 or 1 o'clock on a Friday. And by 10 o'clock that night, you're walking over hot coals. So that's just day one. But what it did for me was it allowed me to understand that there were some things that I maybe had, some beliefs that I had built up over years in my subconscious, which I wasn't even aware of, which was driving certain behavioral patterns, which was causing my emotional state. So it helped me to really kind of start that real in-depth journey. And then at the end of that event, after 3 days, I actually signed up for what's called Mastery University, or Life Mastery, which meant that I went to another event about a year later called Date with Destiny, which is a 6-day event. It was in Palm Springs in the US.
Yeah.
And if I can recommend a course to anyone, that would be the one.
Right.
I still haven't quite figured out how to say this without sounding like I'm on commission from the Tony Robbins organization. And when you've heard people say on television or on radio, this changed my life. I don't know that actually makes an impact, because so many people have said it. But for me, and only people that know me intimately know how an impactful statement this is. Genuinely, if there was a 6-day period that changed my life, it was that course, the Date with Destiny.
Yeah.
The topics that we kind of investigated in terms of life in general was incredible. And the only way that I can describe it is, how you always have to update your operating system on your iPhone? OS 13 has just come out. Well, this is like an operating system upgrade for your brain. And it was an incredible experience. And then about a year after that, I did Life and Wealth Mastery, which was in Fiji, of all places. Very nice. And we look at, you look at looking after your body better. looking after your spirituality better, and then also looking after your finances better. So I got an incredible amount of value out of the 3 courses that I did. And I often say to people now that I give a lot of credit to the Tony Robbins organization for the personal growth that I've had in my life over the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in part also that has contributed to me wanting to be a coach and a mentor to other businesses because of the value that I received from the coaching and the mentoring that I had from them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have personally never been to any of these events, but I mean, I have to similar people, to other influencers as well. But on the Tony Robbins side, I saw they also did a documentary on it, on the exact same program. So there's a documentary on the Date with Destiny. I think it's 2 hours or longer. So it's a quite good insight, maybe an easy place to start if you're interested in it.
Absolutely, and it's called I'm Not Your Guru.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's on Netflix. And it was actually shot at the Date with Destiny the year after I went. So I went in December 2013, and the one on Netflix was shot in 2014. And it gives you like a very quick snapshot into what it is. But certainly it can't compare to being there. It's something that I would highly recommend.
For sure.
Whether you're involved, certainly whether you're interested in sales or not, it's got nothing to do with sales. It's about, you know, how to be a fully actualized human being, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Then I have a few more things about productivity I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
What kind of habits do you have? Let's say your top 3 habits that make your working day or your daily life more productive.
Okay. I'm going to have to put my hands up and actually admit a weakness here.
Okay.
I'm not the best person when it comes to time management.
Right.
I have some good habits that I've developed in life, which I'll share with you. And then, you know, in terms of my time management, I'll talk you through what I do. But actually, it's one of the areas that I'm not very strong. My girlfriend, my partner, who also does some work with my company, she's got a nutrition business. She actually teaches a course to some of my clients about time management and managing energy. And she really now my secret weapon when it comes to managing my time. Because I ask her for advice about, you know, how to be more effective, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. But some of the good habits that I've developed is, so I'm a big believer in routine will set you free. So for me, in order to be consistent with things, I have to put it into a routine, and it has to be scheduled, and I have to put time aside for it. So for instance, for years, I've been trying to be more consistent with my exercise and fitness. You know, I would try going to the gym in the morning, going in the evening. I've never, unfortunately, have the kind of job where I can go in the middle of the day. Some people are lucky to be able to do that. But it was inconsistent because then I work a long day or I can't get up in the morning. So eventually, Eleonora, my girlfriend, said, I tell you what, why don't we try training together? And we get a personal trainer and we pay the personal trainer, but she or he trains both of us. And we started that a few months ago, and it's been the one thing that's made it incredibly consistent. So now, if you wake up, you know, like this morning, we woke up early, woke up at 6 o'clock. It was cold outside. We got home late last night from an event. We didn't want to get up, but we look at each other, we give each other motivation. I know that I've already paid for the session, so that's motivation. And we go to the gym, which is thankfully not far from the house. And we have the trainer, and the trainer puts us through the paces. And then when we finish the session, we high five, which is, I appreciate, it's a very American thing to do.
Yeah.
But you actually have to have a little celebration to anchor the behavior, because you're telling your subconscious mind that this was a good thing. And then it becomes easier and easier. So the first thing that I would encourage everyone to do is, if there's something that you need to do regularly, make it a routine. Put it into your diary, into your calendar. Put time aside for it. That way it's scheduled, it's important, and you have a better chance of actually doing it.
Yeah.
When it comes to my work, what's actually helped me a lot is 2 years ago when I started my business, just over 2 years ago, I adopted the scaling up methodology, you know, the Gazelle scaling up methodology for helping companies grow. And, scaling up has been going for 30 years. It's helped 42,000 companies, I think, at last count, something like that, all over the world in, over 100 countries. And the scaling up methodology has something called meeting rhythms. So it actually sets out a way for you to do daily huddles, weekly huddles, monthly deep dive, quarterly planning. And this is one of the many things that we teach companies when we're trying to help them improve their internal communication, which is something that's incredibly important when you grow fast, because as your team's growing, the complexity increases. So you have to get really good at your internal communication. And then maybe because I'm a bit of a slow learner, I realized about a year after I started teaching other people how to do this, hold on, I should be doing this in my own company. Why aren't we doing this? We're teaching other people to do it. So I implemented the daily huddle, weekly huddles, monthly deep dives. And actually, even though my team is small, that has been an incredibly big help for everyone in my team to be very, very much more efficient. I had a call with one of my clients this morning, and we followed the same structure on every call. We start with a one-word opener. How's everyone feeling? Then we talk about, right, what is the best thing that's happened to you in the last week? So we do a little bit of a celebration. Then we talk about, what are the 3 to 5 priorities that you have this week? Not give me your whole to-do list. What is the 3 to 5 things that you focused on this week? Then we talk about those priorities and we do an alignment. Are those the right things to focus on? Why are you focusing on that? And we have this whole structure that we work through. And what happens is within a 30 to 45-minute call, you can save yourself hours of work. Yeah. Because you're very, very focused on only the things that you have to focus on, where you have to put your energy, the 20% of things that's going to drive 80% performance. And that's really been a huge, huge help to me. But if I turn the camera around and you could see the workspace on the other side of this table, you'll see that there's papers everywhere. So in my personal life, not so much efficient.
Okay. But I think there were, two really good points in there. You said the structure. I mean, that also for me, I'm a big believer in setting a structure, and then also kind of keeping yourself accountable, or as you said, having others that keep you accountable. And the other thing you said is celebration, which is something that I have done less of so far. So that's something else probably to explore. And I can see that is a good value add to do things.
Absolutely. And it's something that I've been historically in my life, I've actually been poor at. I was very lucky to have a line manager, a boss a few years ago, who insisted that, when myself or someone on my team, signed a new contract with a customer, that we celebrated. And sometimes we went through really busy periods, and we would be lucky enough to have multiple wins in a week. And I would be like, oh, well, at the end of the week, we'll do something. And he, as my boss, would say, no, stop what you're doing. Take your team right now, even if you just walk to the kitchen and have a cup of tea and everybody look at each other and go, well done, guys, that was a great effort. Or walk across the road to the pub. You don't have to drink alcohol. You can drink juice or something. But just the physical movement of celebration is actually a signal that you're sending to your subconscious mind, which is, what's happened is good. I want more of that. You have to assign the meaning. Otherwise, you don't have your subconscious mind helping you to repeat. We've all heard of the law of attraction and all that kind of stuff, and it was popularized years ago by The Secret and everything else. But there is real science behind that. But we can only attract that what we focus on. And if we don't focus on celebration, then we don't get more of it. So it's something that is actually, even though it sounds a bit new agey and a bit like, it actually is, it's hard science, and it's proven to work. So it's something that I definitely encourage people to do, even if it's just a moment to breathe and say, you know what, I'm proud of myself. Well done me. Okay, now I can move on. But you have to have that conscious moment of celebration.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me, and it's something I will have to work on myself too. So that's good to learn.
If you need help, give us a call. We'll help you out.
Okay, so a final question for you. What's next for you? What are some exciting new things you're working on right now?
Oh, thank you for asking. There's quite a lot going on at the moment. I'm fortunate enough in the last few months to have come to a partnership agreement with a company in the US called Leverage Sales Coaching. It's a company that was founded by Jack Daly and Dan Larson. Actually, the books are lying next to me here because I'm preparing something for a client right now. So it's based on these two books, Hyper Sales Growth and The Sales Playbook. So Jack and Dan wrote these books a few years ago. They were bestsellers. And for the last 16 years, they've been building playbooks for companies all over the world. Started off in the US and has now moved into the APAC region and also in Europe. But they've never had anybody, kind of physical boots on the ground in Europe to really push this service. And it comes back to, this analogy that I used in the beginning, the metaphor that I used about sports teams. Why do sports teams perform? We talked about some of the reasons, but also because they have a playbook, right? When Jose Mourinho went to Chelsea, I hope that's right. I'm pretty sure that's right. They had a playbook of like, this is how we win. But you can't just develop a playbook, a binder with all your best plays and everything that works, and then take it and put it on the shelf, right? You have to actually use it. You have to deploy it and implement it and coach it and practice it. So I've done this partnership with Leverage Sales Coach, where I now have the exclusive rights to promote this service and the intellectual property that they've been refining for 16 years in all of Europe for the next few years. I've started hiring a team of coaches that are going to be working with me. We've developed an online portal so that all the information can be uploaded into the cloud and is instantly available for both the salespeople and the sales manager to deploy. And I have to say, we're really, really excited. We've spoken to a few customers about it to trial. And last week, customers signed up to the very first one in Europe. So we're super excited to get going, and it's going to be a big focus for us next year. So you'll be seeing on our LinkedIn and on our website and the social media, probably a lot of posts about us developing sales playbooks so that we can get sales teams to perform at the same level as high-performing sports teams.
Yeah, great. So the best place probably to keep watching it is maybe your LinkedIn to keep seeing your content there.
Absolutely. So we have a Facebook page, which I'm going to embarrassingly admit was only set up about a month ago.
Okay.
For the last 2 years, all of our business has been by referral, and it still is. We've been very, very lucky that we have a waiting list of clients that are waiting to work with us. So we've been a little bit lazy with our marketing because we haven't needed to do it. I appreciate that's a nice problem to have. But we're going to try and do better next year. We're going to be active on LinkedIn, active on Facebook. People can go to the website, immerse.consulting. We'll be posting some bits on there. There's some other exciting things that are happening with online learning portals. We have an app that we've developed to help salespeople have quality information at their fingertips on their way to appointments. Lots of really interesting and exciting things that we're doing. But certainly on the website and on social media is probably the best place to find us.
Very good. Thank you. And for anyone who is interested in your sales programs, just reach out to Monet and follow him online. Thanks again. Really, really good to speak to you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. I really appreciated the opportunity to talk about something that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And I wish you guys the best of luck with the podcast. I'm hearing very good things, and I'm sure it'll go from strength to strength. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
You too. Thank you.